For the rest of us, life went on, but I'm sure we had the same thing in our heads. Daniel. During the weeks the oldies were with him, I forced myself to get out of bed every morning to go running with Brendan. It was freezing. Sometimes the grass would be covered with the finest layer of frost. When we were kids, Mum used to say that meant the elves had visited and sprinkled their luck. I wondered what she'd say now. Sometimes Brendan and I talked. Other times I'd run till I saw the blackness of nothing. That's when I'd zone out, the weight of my thoughts shedding with each kilometre, like layers of skin falling onto the track, leaving an empty shell. All I could feel was the force of my breath. But even then, Daniel was never far away. That's what Brendan and I shared, Daniel. Did Dad say he'd be back in time? It was the week before footy camp. He's pretty sure he'd be right, answered Brendan. What about Dan? Joe didn't say much about him except he was doing a bit better. We were back at the cabin. I dumped myself on the stairs while Brendan started his sit-ups. That's one of the worst things about all of this, I said. No one talks about Daniel. They don't talk about how he used to be. They don't talk about how he is now. Yet it's not like we're not thinking about him the whole time. Brendan didn't answer. He just went on counting his sit-ups. Sometimes it feels like he never existed, I continued. I mean, what do the oldies reckon? We think they're having a holiday? If Dan wasn't in jail, I wouldn't be out here before the sun's even up, freezing my balls off with you. Where would you be? Back home in my own bed asleep. I got down on the grass next to Brendan and started doing sit-ups too. We have a right to know how he's doing, but I can never get the oldies on the phone, I puffed. And when I do, they either say they can't talk for long or there's no news. It shits me. Reading between the lines, I think they're having a pretty full-on time up there. I guess we all handle things differently, he replied. You were hardly Mr. Have a Chat when you arrived. Now I can't shut you up. I sat up. You know, Brendan, sometimes you really give me the shits. Johnny filled in for Dad as assistant coach. He had a slightly different style of training. He was more into ball skills and improving your technique. I don't think the boys were too happy about it. They were more at home with Harvey's approach, running your guts out, then finishing with a friendly game of tip. One arvo, Harvey didn't turn up. He had some late meeting at school. Johnny told me to take the backs. I wasn't real comfortable about it. I don't know, Johnny. Harvey said, get Tom to take the backs. Yeah, but, you know, Tom, these fellas will learn a lot playing with you. I didn't say maybe if they were the 12As, but that's what I thought. Marcus, whose nose I'd put out of joint at the touch game on Australia Day, was one of them. So was Tonelli, the captain. At least Rory was in the group. We started on slide defence. There was no ideal way to practice it, and I was pretty sure it was something the boys had no idea about. They seemed keen to learn, so I started explaining how it worked. So I marked their inside centre, Rory said. Not their 5'8"? Exactly. The fellas started nodding. Right. Is that why you were calling drift wide in last week's game? Tonelli asked. Yeah. I looked at him, then at the others, then back at him. Didn't you get that? Well, I think I thought... He stared, a blank look on his face. Oh, forget it, I mumbled. Let's just, have a bit of a run, eh? Afterwards, Brendan turned up in the ute. Good sesh? He asked. Geez, Brendan, I said. I think it's a bit late for footy camp. I don't think these blokes have any idea. Yeah? He laughed. I'm serious. I'm sure you taught them something this arvo, he said. They love the game, I can vouch for that. I climbed into the front seat. I thought I might take you to the club for a steak. I was guzzling the water. Sounds good. Mum gave us some clothes for you. My mum or Gran? Gran. I must have looked panicked. Don't worry, Brendan chuckled. She didn't put in a dinner suit. I'll see you back at my place, Johnny called from the car. Tom can have a shower there. No worries. What? I asked. Where am I going? Johnny wants to get out of his clobber before we go, so you can have a shower at his place. I wasn't too sure about this idea. Will, Chrissy be there? Just say she walked in and saw me starkers. I mean, I'm just wondering. Yeah? Brendan looked at me. She'll be coming to dinner. Their old girl works Tuesday nights. Okay. I nodded casually as the panic set in. I'd seen Chrissy a few times since Kylie told me that pile of shit about her thinking I'm cute, but since then, every time I saw her, I wanted to run the other way. Sunday Mass was okay, because with her up in the choir, I could stare all I wanted, then disappear before she came down. Now here I was with absolutely no warning, about to have dinner with Chrissy Tulake, and the grandmother had packed my clothes. Johnny handed me a towel. The hot comes on really fast and it's like burning, okay? Yep. I acted serious, like I was listening to every word of his instructions, but really I was wishing I had eyes in a few more parts of my body. So far, so good. Chrissy was nowhere to be seen. Get the cold on first, Johnny continued, because the way the shower's angled, it gets kind of tricky. I keep fixing it, but it always breaks. The bathroom was the size of a cupboard, and of course it had one of those doors you couldn't lock. It didn't even shut properly. I rattled it a bit and thought about dragging something over to keep it closed, but the room was so tiny there was nothing in it that wasn't attached to the floor. The shower cubicle was pathetic. A coffin was more spacious, but at least it had a door that closed. I climbed in and turned the tap on, and whooshka came the water, and it was boiling. I was trapped. I couldn't even reach out my arm to turn it off. Shit! Ouch! I maneuvered myself around to try another angle, and this time the hot water got me, scalding my arm and thigh. Ah! I screamed, jumping out and knocking the tap. The hose fell out the shower door. Shit! Ah! Hot water was spraying everywhere, and I was trapped between the dunny and the basin. Brendan and Johnny flew into the bathroom. Tom! Mate! In a flash, Chrissy was at the doorway too, and I was starkers. Ah! Ooh! I leant over the basin, splashing cold water on my arm. At least that covered the front of me, even though my ass was out there in all its glory. Johnny wrestled the hose, kinked it with his foot, and turned the water off. Suddenly there was silence. God, are you okay? Chrissy gasped. Brendan and Johnny burst out laughing. They stood there, pissing themselves. Oh, classic, Brendan kept slapping his thigh. Poor Tom got caught in the Tulake death trap. Johnny passed me the towel. I wrapped it around me, then turned to face Brendan. Ha ha, I said. Chrissy was trying really hard not to laugh too. Her face was bright red and she had her hand over her mouth. Oh, Tom, are you okay? She spluttered. That happens to nearly everyone. Nice bum butt. And that was it. She cracked up too. Maybe that had been a good icebreaker, because dinner was fun. I remembered just about every joke I'd ever been told and did the punchlines with such precision I was even killing myself. Chrissy laughed so much she knocked over the jug of water. She had a great laugh. It started out soft, then grew louder and louder. Not too loud though, and she kind of hiccuped at the end. This was new for me. Usually when I'd been out, Daniel was there and no one ever had a chance around him. Girls would hang on to every word he said, even though he was hopeless at telling jokes. He'd either forget the punchline or stuff it up. I was feeling pretty good, and when Chrissy said, we should do this every Tuesday night, I felt even better than good. But then Johnny piped up with, what about the big Davin? Yeah, Brendan added. What about the big Davin? Is he still big? Brendan and Johnny said together like it was hysterical. You two are off, Chrissy blushed. But you're still seeing him, aren't you? Brendan asked. Well, yes, and she blushed again. The Davin was my obstacle. Daniel was doing okay, which meant Dad could make it to footy camp. He was going straight there from Wesley. Mum wanted to stay a bit longer just to be sure, so Brendan was going up to join her. The arrangement was that after camp, the old man and I'd go to Wesley to see Daniel and pick Mum up. That way Brendan could get back to Cog Hill to help Johnny with a big repair and still be Darryl in the next weekend to look at a unit for Auntie Kath. If it was okay, eventually Finn would move in there too. Gone were the days when I didn't have a clue what the rest of the family was up to. Now it was one finely tuned plan and arrangement after another. We should have kept a tally on the kilometres we were doing. It seemed half our lives were spent in the car. The bus trip up to camp was pretty funny. Soup had eaten a curry the night before and he was letting off fast that just about blinded you. Rory brought up a few dirty mags that were being handed around and Wiseman required the cold hose. The boys were running a book on who was most likely to meet, let alone top, Davin's score last camp with the nurses. Rory, Soup and Jimmy had their money on Miles Harrigan, the vice-captain. Miles would have had money on himself too. Someone said Miles couldn't get it up, so Soup changed it to Nelly. Tonelli bet on Marcus and Wiseman bet on me. Come on, Rory kept elbowing me. You got to place a bet. How would I know? These were the times I felt on the outer. A history I didn't have, names I didn't know. Come on, Brennan, Tonelli called. You can't be a tight ass. Put a bet on me. Wiseman stood up and beat his chest. I'm up to the challenge. That's like burning money. That much I knew. He'd bloody suffocate them. Hey, Tonelli, Harrigan shouted. Is Davin still rooting Tulake? My antenna switched on. Ever since dinner I'd been tuned into two words, Chrissy and Tulake. Eh? Tonelli shouted back. Is Tulake and Davin still on? You're in luck, Miles, Tonelli answered. She dumped him on the weekend. Go, Miles, Wiseman hollered. Go, son. I felt my guts turn, but this time it was good. Dad was waiting for us. Hey, Mr. Brennan. All the boys greeted him as they loaded off the bus. Welcome, fellas, Dad kept saying. Okay, Harvey called. Gather round. This is the deal. 4 rooms of 4 and 1 room of 3. Got it? Everyone nodded and started shuffling into groups. Not so fast, Harvey said. This is a footy camp, not a social event. The idea is we get to know one another, understand the concept of a team, and As Harvey rattled on, I realised this was what I'd been dreading, all that crap. It had been the same crap talk at St John's footy camps, but somehow it was different. I knew those guys inside out. We'd thrived on the bond we'd built. That's what made us winners. Benny's just wasn't the same. Everyone got along and there was no one person you'd call an arsehole, and they had team unity. You couldn't deny them that. But what they didn't have was technique, and that's what put them on the outer next to teams like St John's that could play the game in their sleep. I looked at Dad, trying to figure out what he was thinking. I got the draw with Tonelli, Marcus and Jimmy, and lost the toss on the top bunk. Was it the same at St John's? Tonelli asked me as we were unpacking. Team unity, all that crap? Sort of, I answered. We're playing St John's at the end of July, Marcus told us. Yeah? I swallowed. That was going to be a hard one. We're only playing them once, he added quickly. They're in a different draw to us. You seen them play this year? Tonelli asked. No, I grunted. I caught Marcus glaring at him. Oh yeah, Tonelli said. Just thought you might know what their form was like. No. Who's their captain? Matt O'Rourke, I answered. What's he like? He's my best mate. I sat there, unravelling and unravelling my St John's socks. Now I wasn't sure why I'd brought them. Were they my badge of honour? I shoved them back in my bag. Your old man's a good guy. Knows his stuff. Well, I'm going out for a ciggy, he said. I know they'll pull that amnesty caper on us tonight. Anthony Tonelli was right. After dinner, Harvey made the announcement. Okay, boys, this is a week to get fit and concentrate on your football. Everything else goes out the window, right? So you've all just wasted your money on that little book I heard about. Chuckles and grunts and sir echoed in the dining room. I'm going to hang a bag on the door, and you know the drill. Cigarettes, alcohol. What about syringes? Miles Harrigan yelled. Yeah, funny, Harvey said. Syringes and tourniquets too, please, boys. This is your chance to be anonymous. If I find you're up to stuff after this amnesty, you'll be dealt with according to school regulations. Anyone not understand? The morning routine was standard. Up for an early run, brekkie, 2 hours of training, an hour of gym work, lunch. Then it was an afternoon's worth of bonding, canoeing, orienteering in teams of 4, and whatever other dickhead activity you could imagine. The nights were a mix of games and footy videos, mostly of Benny's getting flogged, which got me wondering what kind of a bullshit camp we were on. For a start, what's the point of having a footy camp when the season's almost half over? These blokes needed this stuff weeks, if not years ago. St John's camp was a hard slog, and at the beginning of the season, Dad used to get a city coach in, a real pro, and he'd work us ragged. But that's what we expected. Camp was to get us into gear to win, to hang on to that Wattle shield. That's what Mum Billy expected. We weren't there to have fluffy getting to know you trust games. All that was a given. By Wednesday, I had the shits with the whole caper, and there was still Thursday and Friday to go. I felt like saying to the old man and Harvey, there's no point to this. Why don't we get back on the bus and go home? Dad sussed me out. After lunch, he came up to me. Tom, I want a word. I followed him to the porch outside. What's the problem, son? He asked. You don't seem to be into it. It's showing too. Come on, Dad, I moaned. The 16As would be better than this lot. I mean, they're all good guys, but... But what? Dad, get real. I thought you were a member of this team. What sort of a question is that? I thought you'd know by now what sort of a question that is. Dad? Did I push you too hard? He placed his head against the railings of the porch. Was that it? Did I bend to Mum Billy's obsession with retaining the Wattle shield at all costs? What are you talking about? You know why I got someone else to head the footy camps at St John's? He started to crack his knuckles one by one. Because part of me didn't believe in that winning is everything mentality. Part of me knew there was more than that. Dad, what are you going on about? I'm not sure, he said. I'm not sure of anything anymore. His body leant against the railing, then turned to me. No, there is one thing I'm sure of. You were lucky. He nodded to himself. Not only has God given you a gift, and that I mean sincerely, you also had Dan. Now, he was good, but he was never going to be as good as you, and I think deep down he knew that. Did you? Did you realise how much better you were? How much more natural ability you have? The old man was freaking me out. All I could do was shake my head. But you had someone who wanted to teach you, who wanted to kick a ball around with you all day, every day. Every waking moment you boys worked on your skills, kicking, passing. There were nights your mother and I had to drag you to the dinner table. Then in summer you'd be straight back out again. An instinct developed between you two. You knew where he'd be and he'd know your next move. Brothers. Dad's eyes were starting to glaze, but I knew he wasn't going to stop until he'd said every last word. And then when you had the fortune to play together at St John's, it was like music. But it was like that because of all the time that went before. That's why you're lucky, son. For what it's worth now, your brother gave you a fair go. He looked at me and all the pain and disappointment he'd endured sat deep in the lines of his face. I know it hurts, Tom. Gently, he touched my shoulder. But we can't undo what's done. Benny's is giving you a chance, and as pathetic as it may seem to you, it's still a chance. Again I heard his swallow, loud and dry. No one's above anyone. Surely you know that by now. Dad. That's the only sound I could make. Dad. Take it, Tommy, he sighed. Do everything you can to make the most of it. It's not like you to not try. I know every one of them could learn from you. They deserve a fair go like you did. Slowly he nodded and said, Here's a challenge. Show me how good you really are. 'Cause I know you're better than this. Well, if that speech didn't make me feel like the scum of the earth, I don't know what would. I'd learnt the old man was spare with his pearls, and more than that, he was fair. He'd always taken a gamble on me, telling me things even if he thought they'd get my nose out of joint. With Daniel he didn't, because the backfire was always monumental. So I accepted his challenge and turned it up. Besides, what else was I going to do with myself? I couldn't stare at the try line thinking of Chrissy Toulakay for the rest of the season. Every session I trained hard, like I was back at St John's. I managed to teach the boys a few things. Slide defence was one of them, and they got it too. The Arvo activities weren't so bad once you got into them. I pissed myself senseless when we tipped, or rather rolled Wiseman out of his canoe. I'd meant it when I said that Benny's fellas were okay. They were top blokes. They knew how to have a laugh and not take things too seriously. I guess when it came to footy, I just wasn't used to that attitude. Winning had been everything at St John's, but now I was confused, because I think Dad was trying to tell me that wasn't enough. I lay awake on the top bunk, his words turning over and over in my head. Some words stayed longer than others, and some refused to budge at all.